You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Take a step back in time with me real quick to March 8th, 2024. On this show, it was our trade deadline episode, and I said at the very end of the show, the Florida Panthers will win the Stanley Cup this year. Fast forward to today, and it happened. The Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup champions. Welcome back, everybody, to the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. I'm Andy Matusi, alongside my brother Brian. Brian, I think it's safe to say that if anybody had any belief that jinx existed, I pretty much proved that they don't.
Yeah, well, you were always the biggest believer of the jinx. You told me I jinxed the Bruins last year, but you went out and pulled off the jinx of all jinxes. But it doesn't matter because the Panthers won the Stanley Cup last night. They won Game 7 2-1, an absolute nail biter of a game from start to finish. One of the best hockey games I've ever watched. And ultimately results in the Panthers winning the first Stanley Cup in franchise history, which is insane for a franchise that 8 years ago was talking about relocation as they couldn't draw more than 3,000 to 5,000 fans at every game. They've come a long way since then, and I know you and your wife have been there every step of the way.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. And it's still here. It's the day after. It is Tuesday as we're recording this. This game happened last night. It still doesn't feel real. It's like living in a dream right now. It's wonderful. I'm loving every second of it, and it's everything we could have hoped for. So
I'm glad the Panthers jersey I got finally arrived too. It was a retro throwback one, and I was like, when I ordered it after Game 3, thinking, okay, this is pretty well locked up. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's get this thing down here so I have it in time. And then it came 3 days late, and it all worked out because they win 7. So
they win 7, and the good thing is I don't have to buy a new jersey now.
I know, which is good because you don't have to spend money, but bad because you don't get to buy a hockey jersey now. So that kind of sucks. But I suppose there are worse things in life, and given that the alternative is that the Panthers have the Stanley Cup in their possession, I don't think you'll lose sleep over that.
And before we get into the game, I just want to say, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I said I was going to say it. I fucking told you so. That's not to you. That's just to the general public. I fucking told you so. And here we are. Life is good.
Those of you watching on video, you'll notice that we wasted no time trimming our beards down. I woke up this morning and shaved mine. It was the first thing I did. I didn't go out in my kitchen, make breakfast. I didn't even drink any water. I just straight into the bathroom to buzz my head down and shave most of my beard off. And for you, a good trip to the barber got you all cleaned up.
Yep, and that was long overdue. And I was really looking forward to shaving my beard off.
I was starting to get a lot of knots in mine the last week or so, and there wasn't enough conditioning or combing I could do to stop it. So I'm glad to be pretty close shaved.
Yeah, I feel a lot better now. So that was well earned, and now we'll keep our beards like this till next playoff season.
Pretty much.
And, but I do want to get into this game. I don't want to pussyfoot around anymore, which yeah, I don't even know where to start because, like I said, I'm still like living in a dream right now. So I think I'll let Brian start this, and we'll go from there.
Well, it's kind of it was a perfect storm of things. Paul Maurice talked about before the game that you don't look back at what's happened leading up to this point because literally none of it matters anymore. It doesn't matter what they did in the last games. If you come out and you play a good game this game, that's all that really matters. So the Panthers come out in the first period. They're lightning quick. They're really physical. They're all over the Oilers. It results in the first goal. Midway through the first period, they start to get a little off their game, and Janmark comes back the other way and gets a goal to tie it up. But pretty much from that point forward, other than a few really good chances the Oilers had, this game was mostly Panthers, and it eventually results in them getting the game-winning goal in the second period from Sam Reinhart.
The other thing I want to say is that the Panthers really beat the shit out of Edmonton that whole game. I mean, it was a very physical game, which I loved. But I mean, that played a big factor on a banged up Oilers team. And now, go ahead.
No, I would say that game felt like games 1, 2, and 3. That felt like that's how the series should have ended in game 4, but it just didn't.
No, it didn't. And that's because I touched the cup that day. So yeah, whatever.
Gotta keep you honest. Jinxes aren't real, but you gotta be. You can't be too slick with it.
My wife had a great quote last night regarding that. She goes, I know we didn't jinx the team permanently, but I definitely feel like I learned a lesson. So, so shout out to her. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But again, very physical game, and that's exactly what the Panthers needed. It sucks if you're a hockey fan, just the sheer fact that McDavid didn't win the cup. And I talked to you about this earlier too. If you're an actual hockey fan and you're over the moon that McDavid lost, and that the Oilers are feeling like crap, you're not a real hockey fan. A true hockey fan would have enjoyed every second of this final for either team. And I told you on the phone earlier too, if I wasn't a Panthers fan, I would have been rooting for the Oilers because I think anybody with half of a brain wants to see McDavid win the cup.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And one thing I learned from this playoffs, and maybe I should have learned it, 10 years ago when I started watching hockey, is stay out of the Facebook comments, because most of the people commenting on social media posts are miserable, whiny bitches, and that's what you've seen after everything. Guys happy that McDavid and Draisaitl were injured. Guys happy that even though the Panthers won, Tkachuk didn't play a big role. I'm just like, just insufferable whiny. I'm trying not to say the C word here. We're trying to keep this pretty keep this pretty mellow here, but I think you know what I mean. These people are just annoying as shit. So one thing I learned this playoffs is to just not go into those comment sections anymore, because they're a cesspool of complete
fucking
stupidity.
Losers.
Yeah,
that's the best.
I'm really trying to dance around using just 10 profanities stacked on top of each other.
Fuck them, dude. That's exactly what they are. They're fucking losers, all of them.
So, but that's my big takeaway from this. But that was a really incredible game. It felt like I was sitting on the edge of my couch most of the game. And we have yet another year of guys that have left the Buffalo Sabres winning the Stanley Cup. So imagine that. So, but in all seriousness, so congratulations. There was a ton of players and staff on that team that finally broke through. I mean, Barkov and Ekblad, who have been there for 10 plus years now. Paul Maurice, who's been a coach in the league for 30 years. Kyle Okposo, 10 plus seasons, 1,000 plus regular season game, finally breaks through and gets a cup. Vladimir Tarasenko wins another one. There's countless storylines on this team. Sam Reinhart, again, another guy that was kind of left for dead when he left Buffalo, really kind of got his name dragged through the mud, undeservedly so. Comes out and he had a career year this year. I mean, he just looked fantastic. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention everybody's favorite pest, Matthew Tkachuk, keeping to his promise, although it took him a couple extra games, but they were healthy. They came in and did their thing, and they walked away with the Stanley Cup. And, of course, the guy that probably should have won the Conn Smythe Trophy, Sergei Bobrovsky, after 14 years in the National Hockey League, finally got to lift the Stanley Cup over his head. And I think you could feel a collective sigh of relief from a lot of hockey fans.
That guy... with the Panthers winning the cup, Sergei Bobrovsky punched his ticket to the Hall of Fame. No question. Yep. Especially if he wins the Vezina this year again, too. I think that's going to go to Hellebuck, honestly, but you never know.
Hellebuck had a really good year, and sometimes when we get into a situation like this where a guy who's in the finals up for a major award, our vision gets clouded. But I do think it's probably fair to say that Hellebuck's going to walk away with the Vezina this year. But I believe Bobrovsky's already won it twice, so nothing against him there. And again, Stanley Cup champion, so I certain we'll see him in the Hall of Fame before too long. Speaking of Hall of Fame, we just saw this afternoon the Hall of Fame induction class. So, Andrew, you were going to say something, but while I pull up the list here, go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I was going to say we should probably also point out that Kyle Okposo earned himself a $500,000 bonus as part of his contract. There was a stipulation in there that he would receive $500,000 if he won the Stanley Cup. So mission accomplished there, and just really great. That was most likely his last game in the NHL, so it was really cool to see him go out on top.
Yeah, everything seems to be pointing that direction. But to say in your last game you made $500,000 and won the Stanley Cup, that's pretty good. Because remember, the players don't get paid during the playoffs; all their money's paid out in the regular season. So to cash in $500,000 more and take the Stanley Cup home when you ride off into the sunset, it's a hell of a way to go out. So to Kyle Okposo, who is not officially retired by any means yet, congratulations on a fantastic career and a storybook ending.
Absolutely.
The 2024 Hockey Hall of Fame class will be Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell-Paul as players, and then Colin Campbell and David Poile as builders. Of course, Colin Campbell's been around the league for a long, long time, and everybody knows that David Poile is responsible for building the Nashville Predators to what they are today, and yeah, I think a really good Hall of Fame class. I know Natalie Darwitz's induction is going to be bittersweet given she just got fired, but that's that's a different topic for a different day, and we've already kind of discussed on that. So, but I figured we'd bring that up because it was announced this afternoon, and yeah, why not?
Yeah.
All right, so Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe Trophy, deservingly so. I know that obviously he was pretty well absent in game 6 and 7, didn't really get any great looks, didn't score. But again, it's the playoff MVP. It's not the finals MVP. Connor McDavid willed this team to victory in the last 3 rounds, really. I mean, LA was so bad and they were so up against it the first round. The Oilers were going to walk away with that. But they ran through Vancouver and survived against Dallas and almost came all the way back against Florida, and it's largely because of him.
Yeah, I think it's a crime if it goes to anybody except McDavid. And like you pointed out, it's playoff MVP, not finals MVP. And Connor McDavid quite literally carried his team through the playoffs. Absolutely.
The Oilers aren't even into the conference final if it wasn't for McDavid's play. So, yeah.
100%. The call was right. I mean, as a Panthers fan, you want it to go to Bob, obviously. I mean, up until game 4, Bob played out of his mind in the playoffs.
Bob got almost no Conn Smythe votes, which blows my mind.
Yeah, but like I said, it should be going to McDavid. It rightfully went to McDavid. And I'm in a hockey group chat with some of my friends from Florida, and they were all throwing a fit that it didn't go to Bob. And I was like, look, it is the playoff MVP, like we said. Connor McDavid carried his team. Without Connor McDavid, that team wasn't making the Eastern Conference final, like you said, let alone the Stanley Cup final. So it went to the right place, and it's a crime if it goes anywhere else.
Yep, fair enough. I don't want to spend too much time on the Conn Smythe. I mean, like I said, I thought McDavid deserved it, but I do think maybe in the future they should have a discussion about it. Should it at least go to somebody on the team that won the cup? But that's a later on conversation. We have a lot we need to get to in this show yet, so we won't spend too much time on that. But I want to talk real quick. We're going to go back to the Panthers in just a minute. I want to shout out the Hershey Bears, who last night won the Calder Cup for the 2nd straight year of the American Hockey League. Obviously, last night we did not watch that game because we were watching Game 7 of the Cup final. But again, Hershey, I believe that's their 13th championship now in Calder Cup history, which is by far the most. So congratulations to the storied franchise, adds to their story, and beats the Firebirds for the 2nd straight year. Another great year for Coachella Valley, but obviously not enough to get them over the hump. And I can't talk on Game 6, which happened last night, because like I said, we didn't watch it.
Yeah, neither did I, obviously.
And shout out to all the fans that were at that game, though, for missing the Stanley Cup final to watch their team in the Calder Cup final. Very cool.
Yeah, that's commitment. Well, to be fair, the Coachella Valley fans are probably Kraken fans, so not like their team was in the final. But yeah, you said you wanted to go back to the Panthers too. I could talk about this all night. So the other thing I want to point out is the Carter Verhaeghe goal at the beginning of the game.
Oh, that was awesome, wasn't it?
That was huge too. First of all, it gives Florida the momentum. Second of all, Carter Verhaeghe hadn't done jack shit since game 1. He himself needed to score that goal, and that was everything for him. And it brought life to that arena that I think otherwise would have slowly been vacuumed out of that place, like it kind of was for a lot of the playoffs. That was, for as good as the Panthers were, the arena's just not. It was never as loud as I thought it could be, with the exception of last night. And I'm not trying to compare it to Edmonton, because Edmonton's a different level.
I gotcha. All right. So for the Panthers, they did it. They finally won their franchise's first Stanley Cup. Third time was the charm, making it there. Now the steps begin to run it back. So you take a look at the Panthers now. They have a boatload of free agents coming up. Anton Lundell is an RFA. Then for you, and so is Josh Mahura. I assume they're going to try and qualify Mahura, but I assume Lundell's going to get a pretty sizable contract offer. He's a really good young player. But as far as UFAs go, Nick Cousins, Ryan Lomberg, Steven Lorentz, Kyle Okposo, who's probably retiring, Sam Reinhart, Kevin Stenlund, and Vladimir Tarasenko up front. On the back end, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Dmitry Kulikov, and Brandon Montour, and Anthony Stolarz as well. Excuse me. Oh, got a hiccup. Anthony Stolarz as well in goal, but it sounds like he's going to walk, and I would assume Spencer Knight will take over as the backup next year. Where do you begin if you're this team? Because I have my thoughts on where they need to go if they're going to run it back, given their current contract situation. But you're a fan of the team. You got a good ear to the ground. What do you think?
Your first priority needs to be getting Sam Reinhart signed. You have to get that done. At this point, he's too valuable to be let go. And it's also great that he scored what ended up being the Stanley Cup winning goal of that game. But aside from that, he had a phenomenal regular season. You have to lock him up, and he wants to stay. So that's going to be priority number one, but I'm not worried about it. They're going to get it done. As a result, you're going to see guys like Brandon Montour walk. They've already made it clear. Bill Zito has made it clear already that they're not going to re-sign Brandon Montour. That's a tough loss because he's a good offensive defenseman, but I mean, sometimes you got to make moves in the right place. And I think there's a good chance that they re-sign Tarasenko for at least a year, partially because I know Vladdy wants to play there. Like, he wants to be there. So I bet you they get him for at least one more year. But again, you're going to need cap space. So I think the first thing they're going to do is figure out a price for Sam Reinhart. Once they get that done, they'll start moving people around from there where they need to go from there. But your number one priority has to be Reinhart.
Fair enough. My thought on this is this: they have most of their core locked up. Barkov, Kachuk, Bennett, Verhaeghe, Rodriguez are all under contract for next year up front. Bennett and Verhaeghe are UFAs after next season. But again, we're just talking for this coming season. Who's already on the books. So for them, I think the big priority, first of all, you're absolutely right. It's Sam Reinhart. Guy scores 57 goals this year, has a 94-point season. He's a really talented player. He understands the game well. You hear shows talk about guys with good hockey IQ. Sam Reinhart's probably right at the top of that list. He just sees the game very, very well, and he's a really good player. They also really need to bring back Anton Lundell, which there's no doubt in my mind they will. He's a really good defensive forward. There's a lot of similar features to his game like Barkov has. He's really good defensively. He's not a liability. It pretty much seems like he's very rarely the guilty party on a goal against. So really responsible player. That third line was extremely effective in this playoff specifically too, and he was a big driver on that line. So I think the biggest thing they got to do first is bring back Reinhart and bring back Lundell. And again, with Lundell being an RFA, it's pretty much a lock that he'll stay anyways. But we pretty much know that I would think Kulikov's it's a coin flip. If they give him a decent offer and he wants to stay, he'll stay. Montour is gone because he's going to make a shit ton of money somewhere else. Tarasenko, I would imagine, I think you're probably right. That's a guy they want to try and bring back if they can get him cheap enough. And the fact that he likes playing there does help.
Yeah.
But I think you look at guys like Stenlund and Lomberg, they're probably going to command pretty good money elsewhere as they are good players. And again,
going to walk.
When you're a team that's this good, sometimes you have to sacrifice your good depth players to make sure you're spending your money on your core. And that's what's going to have to happen here. I mean, obviously you want to keep all your roster that you won the cup with, but when all these guys are due for big paydays, you have to understand that you're going to lose them. And that's what separates the good GMs from the bad ones, because a good GM like Bill Zito is going to go out and find his depth guys through free agency. And that's how you build a roster. It seems to be the way that all these championship winning teams have done it. They have figured out who their best guys are and have not been afraid to cut ties with the guys that aren't part of their top 6 or top defensive pairs.
Yeah, first thing you need to do is Bill Zito deserves all the credit in the fucking world for building this team. Just fucking unreal. The second thing I need to credit is Paul Maurice. And again, right my wrong, because I, along with a lot of other people, were livid when they announced that they were hiring him as the head coach. Here we are 2 years later, and look at where we are. Back-to-back trips to the Stanley Cup, including one championship. It's time to put on the clown shoes. We're all stupid. Paul
Luckily,
Maurice,
they fit you just fine.
yeah, I know. Well, thankfully, I already got a pair. So, Paul Maurice is a phenomenal coach. It is so. The biggest thing I liked about this, and I'm not trying to get off topic, but the biggest thing I liked about the Panthers winning the cup is that everything about it was heartwarming. Between Bob getting to lift it after 14 years, Paul Maurice finally winning a cup after 500 years. It's just
500 years. I'll tell you what, we talk about the all-time great moments in this game, and you see them in highlight packs and everything. There are a few moments that I think Panthers fans will remember better than when Paul Maurice has the cup above his head and he's just looking down like this with his eyes closed, and you just know he's thinking, fucking finally. And he looks up at the trophy and gives it a big kiss. And you could just see the elation on his face that the long, grueling journey he spent over half his life doing or working towards has finally been achieved.
Did you hear the story about his wife?
I didn't hear the story about his wife. No.
So I'm very much paraphrasing this, but I heard it on 32 Thoughts. Elliot Friedman was talking.
Oh, that was his daughter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was his daughter. Yeah, the teacher. Yeah, go listen to that. Elliot tells that story pretty well, and even he kind of paraphrased it. But go listen to 32 Thoughts and listen to the story of how one of Paul Maurice's daughters made it to the game just in time to see them win it all. It's a pretty funny story and kind of weird how it worked out. But yes, go listen to that.
And Paul Maurice also called his parents from the ice to tell them.
Yeah, he said he always dreamed of doing that, and boy, did he stick to it. So that was awesome. For this team, we know they have a great coach. We know they have a great GM. They've won a championship. We talked about the players that are on the books. This is what's going to make or break Bill Zito. I don't want to say make or break Bill Zito. This is what's going to potentially allow Bill Zito to elevate himself to one of the greatest GMs of all time, is how he follows this up. He had the mindset and the balls to take a team that was an offensive juggernaut and say, okay, this isn't good enough. What do we have to do to make it better? They tore part of it down. They turned it into a defensive first kind of team. They go to the Stanley Cup. They just come up short last year. Now they go back to the final this year and beat one of the better teams of the last 10, 15 years in the final. Now they got to follow it up again by retooling, signing the right depth guys. Bill Zito's got a chance here next year if the Panthers can run this back to elevate himself to one of the best GMs of all time. And for Paul Maurice, we know he's a great coach. He's had a lot of bumps in the road along the way, but for a guy to take a team to 2 Stanley Cup finals and win one, I think we've seen all we need to see of Paul Maurice.
Yeah. And for those of you back to the absolute dumpster fire that is the social media comment section, all these people, Florida doesn't have real fans. Oh, they have 10 fans. They don't deserve the cup. Hockey doesn't belong in Florida. They're a joke. Shut the fuck up. There is nothing else that can be done now to prove that the Panthers are the real fucking deal. And if you think otherwise, you're a fucking loser. That's pretty much what it comes down to. All these stupid haters in the fucking comments all the time. Like Brian said, stay out of there. They're all wrong. And this isn't me. This isn't coming from a Panthers fan. This is just coming from a general hockey fan. You are stupid. I don't know what else you want at this point. They won the fucking Stanley Cup. What do you want? So what if their stadium was empty 5 years ago? You know why? Because they were dog shit. Okay, this isn't like Minnesota or Columbus or Toronto Winnipeg. Or Winnipeg, where they can lose 82 fucking games every year and still sell out. Okay, it is what it is. Just fucking be happy, man. Everybody's so damn jaded all the time.
Yeah, what's funny is in one of the Facebook comment sections, I saw somebody dumping on the Wild, and I was like, Jesus, man, what did the Wild do to you? That when was the last time the Wild could be even talked about in the month of June? Like, honestly. So I people are miserable. They'll find team. I saw another one too about somebody dumping on the Leafs, which I mean, the Leafs are the league's punching bag, and I get it, but
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, dude, they haven't played a game in 2 fucking months. Leave Toronto alone. Leave all these franchises that haven't played games since the middle of April. It's like, let them fucking rest, man. Jesus Christ.
Dude, for real. And like, I get it. Like, I fucking hate the Leafs, man, but they're
I hate
done.
the
They're
Wild
out.
too. I just cheer for them.
Well, yeah. Yours is a love-hate relationship, though. But
yeah, no, stay out of those comment sections. It's a good way to get yourself riled up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place tonight. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm just so fired up with the fact that the Panthers won the cup that I'm not even sure that we're actually recording a podcast. I'm not sure that I'm not dreaming this right now. So
I can tell you're not.
Well, that's reassuring. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm full of wisdom. All right, so we have a shit ton of other stuff to get to in this show.
Let's do it.
Before we do, I want to take a moment to mention our sponsors in the Warrior for Life Fund as well.
Absolutely. First up, Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast is brought to you, as always, by Zeno Pucks. Hey, you got yours. And you have no audio.
There we go. Those of you watching, I must have double clicked. I meant to just stop my camera. I hit my mic too. Yeah, I never have my puck ready, but this time I came prepared.
Yeah. So Zeno Pucks makes a high quality off ice alternative practice puck. There are days you want to go out and practice your game, whether your stick handling, your shot, whatever it is that you need to work on. Ice time isn't always a possibility. So they came up with this. The guys who made this also lived in Florida at the time. And it's designed to be used on almost any off-ice surface. We talk about it all the time. The floors in your house, any surface, any type of flooring, concrete, asphalt, dirt or turf for some reason. You can use it on all of those. The slide and glide on this is incredible. I don't know what kind of off-ice puck you're using right now, but whatever it is, it's
throw
nothing.
It in the garbage.
Throw it in the garbage and go get yourself one of these. You're not going to find a better off-ice puck than this right here. It's the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck. So head over to xenopucks.com right now. Get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks. That's XENOPUCKS. And make sure you tell them that Andy and Brian sent you.
Yes, please do. We want the attention.
Okay.
All right. And if you're going to work on elevating your off-ice practice, go check out our friends at Hockey Wraparound too. They're going to help you in many ways with your off ice. They're going to help you get your equipment drying racks from them, which is great because hockey equipment stinks. So anything you can hang it on so you don't have to leave it in a bundled pile on the floor is going to go a long way. They also have tape there too. So after you're done practicing, you can fix up your tape job. But before you start, you can give yourself a new tape job. And of course, you want to protect that tape job, protect your expensive hockey stick. Get their premier product, which is the blade protector. Just a vinyl wraparound that goes on the blade of your stick. It's going to make sure you're not hacking up the bottom of your stick blade. And again, you don't want to be wasting money with how expensive all this stuff can be. So check out our friends at Hockey Wraparound. Go to hockeywraparound.com and use the code FreshIcePod at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order. And now, Andrew, if you want to go ahead and take a moment to talk about the Warrior for Life. And Andrew's audio is off now, so we are full of greatest hits today.
Nope, I did it. Every time you go to do your hockey wraparound, I always mute my mic in case I sneeze or something during your read, and I forgot to unmute it. Anyway, before I talk about the Warrior for Life Fund, I just want us to point out that we receive no money or anything from the Warrior for Life Fund for this. They are not an official sponsor of the show. It's just an organization that means a lot to us and me in particular. And so after having Bob and Mark and Albie on the show, who are ambassadors for it, we just decided we're going to talk about it from now on. So with that being said, the Warrior for Life Fund is a charity, an organization, we'll call it. And what they do is they are out to help military service members and their families transition, whether it be back into the civilian world after getting out of the military or coming back from a deployment. And if you served in the military, doesn't matter for what country. I mean, if you served in any type of armed forces, coming back from a deployment or trying to transition back into being a civilian is a huge mental struggle. So the Warrior for Life Fund is here to kind of relieve some of that, and they do it through the game of hockey. They have their own hockey team. They play games against the Boston Bruins alumni organization, who they're actually partnered with, and they actually just recently partnered with the NHL as well. So that something as simple as getting these guys who are struggling just out on the ice, even if it's just for an hour, just to build that camaraderie, because hockey and the military are a lot alike in that sense that it's all team building stuff. It's all camaraderie. It's all one big family. I don't think there's a better way to help transitioning veterans than the way the Warrior for Life Fund does things. And if you want to help the Warrior for Life Fund, you can head over to warriorforlifefund.org and make a donation today and help our veterans, help any veteran. I mean, that's the biggest thing. But you can make a donation today and you will be directly benefiting the veterans.
All right, I like it. So we got a lot of other shit to go or to get to that has nothing to do with the finals, because for some reason everybody in the league the last few days decided let's make all the trades and have all the signings. And yeah, so we got a lot of shit to do. Real quick, let's run down the list here. The first trade that kind of shocked everybody was between the LA Kings and the Washington Capitals. LA sending center Pierre-Luc Dubois over to Washington in exchange for goaltender Darcy Kemper. This trade really doesn't make sense for either team. It makes more sense for LA because they wanted Dubois' god-awful contract off the books. This is a one-for-one trade with no salary retention, from my understanding. Correct. And so LA sheds the Dubois contract and brings in Darcy Kemper, who's a very good goalie. He won the Cup with Colorado, but nothing special. For Washington, this is where it really makes no sense to me. I don't know if I don't know if they think they can revive his career or if they just badly need somebody who's got good playmaking skill, because Dubois does bring that. But I don't know if they're just looking for somebody to feed Ovechkin. But this trade made no sense to me for Washington.
It's great that you say that, because our viewer question this week directly ties into this, and you almost verbatim just covered it, but I'm going to go ahead and read it right now.
All right.
This question comes to us this week from our good friend Don Fournier. He said, Andy and Brian, first, you guys know I love the show. Question: what do you guys think of the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade? To me, it's just to get another setup guy for Ovi to attempt to reach the goals record at the cost of wins.
I think, Don, we're in the same boat on this one. I just don't get it with everything we know of Pierre-Luc Dubois. Again, he brings great playmaking ability to the table. When he's playing well, he's a really elite passer. I like his hands. And when you have a guy like Ovi as your finisher, I mean, all you have to do is get him the puck in the general vicinity, and he's putting it home. But for a guy that's a locker room cancer like this, and you give up a pretty good goaltender in Darcy Kemper. I mean, I know it seems like Charlie Lindgren, they want to kind of make him their guy, but man, I just feel like no salary retained either. And maybe LA wasn't interested in retaining salary, and I just can't say I blame them, but this trade just really is weird to me. But again, I know the Caps are going to probably be making some questionable or borderline dumb decisions over the next 2 seasons as Ovi pushes for the all-time goals record. So you want to look at every trade in a vacuum to really judge the value of it and judge the quality of the trade for both teams. But we kind of do have to take a step back and look at it, because they got Ovi his cup. They badly want him to break the record. So anytime we see a dumb move like this, I think we have to look at it in that light. So good question, Don, but I think we're in the same boat of, boy, this is a weird move, and it just seems like they're trying to get Ovi a setup man because Backstrom's gone.
Yeah, I just feel like there's better options they could have taken. Like you said, the guy's a career locker room cancer. Are you really willing to just absolutely tank your team morale? Because this guy's a fucking prick. That's the biggest thing. And like you said, yeah, they're going to make dumb decisions over the next couple seasons trying to get Ovi to break that record. And I hope he does. I think everybody wants Ovi to break that record. But the long term for this is terrible. And my biggest red flag, like you mentioned, zero salary retention on LA's end is kind of, pretty much Washington. They got hosed. They got fleeced.
Yeah, boy, LA really. We all talked about Rob Blake needing to be probably fired for this contract. I think he just saved his career right there because he absolutely dodged a bullet getting out from under this one. I still can't believe that they pulled this off. But yeah, we'll be interested to see how that affects the team going forward. I don't expect the Capitals to be especially competitive over the next couple seasons, and I'm assuming part of their thought is we still need to kind of rebuild anyways while we help Ovi do this. You need warm bodies. Yeah, Dubois makes a shitload of money, but they're not in win now mode anyway. So wasting a shitload of money on a guy like this, maybe not the end of the world. And when it comes down to it, they may be able to buy the last couple of years of that contract out down the road. So we'll see what happens. But for now, again, it's a warm body and it's a guy who is capable of being a good player.
And who knows, maybe he does a complete 180 and he has a bunch of success with them. I mean, only time will tell. But Don, great question. Thank you for the question. And most importantly, thank you for following the show.
Yes. All right, another trade. This one broke not too long after our last show, and I was hoping it was going to be before our previous show because, again, I knew this show was going to have a lot of stuff on it, but here we are. Jacob Markstrom going to the New Jersey Devils from the Calgary Flames. The Flames retained 31.2% of Jacob Markstrom's salary. As part of the deal, he goes to New Jersey in exchange for Kevin Ball and a first round pick, which is top 10 protected. So, just got to cover your own ass there. But Jersey gets their goaltending tandem now. They have Allen, they have Markstrom. This year kind of fell off the rails for them early with the Jack Hughes injury and then the lack of good goaltending. Does this move put New Jersey back into the conversation of being legit like they were a couple of years ago?
I say absolutely. I mean, I think their biggest thing, other than the Hughes injury, their biggest thing was consistent goaltending. I think this absolutely, I don't want to say makes them terrifying, but they're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. I absolutely think so. I think this puts them right back in the running. And I think if everybody stays healthy and the goaltenders do their damn jobs, I mean, on paper, that's a good goalie tandem. So I think it's the right move for them. I think this puts them hopefully into the playoff race next year.
Yeah, I would think it does. I mean, first of all, Jake Allen's not a bad goalie. He's probably good enough to be a starter on some teams. So I think he'll make a good backup here. And Markstrom, when he's on top of his game, is one of the best goalies in the league. He's probably a top 10 goalie in the league. So if they can get good Jake Markstrom, then I think they're extremely dangerous. We've already seen what they can do the last couple seasons with their scoring touch. The defense is pretty good. I know they had injuries this year to what was it? Jonas Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton, I think, were injured for a good chunk of this year. So I know the Devils, a lot of things didn't go right this year and ultimately, again, resulted in them having a pretty bad season. But I think these moves, I think Tom Fitzgerald has done a good job to get this team back on the map. And we'll see how it goes next year. I'm excited to see the Devils, and I really hope Jack Hughes can go on another heater like he did at the start of this season.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
So, all right, that'll be a fun trade. And for the Flames too, I mean, look, it clearly wasn't working there. They get a pretty good return. I mean, you get a first round pick. Now, again, it is top 10 protected, but that top 10 protection on the pick is in case there's another nightmare scenario for the Devils where there's a lot of injuries and they have a bad finish. I don't think the Devils will be nearly bad enough to have a bottom 10 finish. So I think that pick will be safe in Calgary's hands. And again, you get another prospect in Kevin Ball. So not the worst trade, especially since Markstrom wanted out of there anyways. I think all things considered, the Flames can kind of count this as a win, even though they had to retain some salary, but at least you got the guy out that didn't want to be there. You bring in an asset that you can put into your lineup now if you want to. And again, you get a pick, which is probably going to be in the 15 to 20 realm in the first round. So not bad at all. I don't hate it for Calgary, but I think the Devils definitely come out better for this, especially given that they don't have to pay Markstrom's full salary.
Correct. Absolutely.
All right, let's see here. Now, I do want to pull up the Linus Ullmark trade. I had it in front of me and then I accidentally closed that tab. So, but the big thing of this trade, I'm mostly just looking at the return. The big thing of this trade is that Linus Ullmark is going to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for goaltender Joonas Korpisalo, and I believe he's going to have 25% of his contract retained by the Sens.
Yeah.
So Joonas Korpisalo goes to the Bruins as well as forward Mark Kostelic and a first-round pick in this draft. The Bruins are looking to add a center. I have to wonder if they're going to try and wheel this first-round pick. and maybe something else. They got to bring in a center. We looked at the Bruins, and we'll get to the Sens in a minute because this is a huge trade for them. The Bruins don't, at least right now, don't look like they made out too well in this trade. But again, we saw how the season ended. The lack of center depth killed them in the playoffs. I got to imagine they're going to try and wheel this pick and a prospect or something to bring in a big center.
That's what I would say. I don't think this is the permanent return that we're looking at here. And if it is, then they got absolutely fleeced.
Yeah, if this is Don Sweeney, this is a fireable offense for Don Sweeney. I mean, if that's all you get and you don't plan on doing anything else with this, then yeah, shame on you. But we'll just have to wait and see. This isn't one we can completely judge on the Bruins yet until we know what they do at the draft and in the coming week.
But if they do nothing, then as a Bruins fan, I'm going to be very questionable, or not what's what I'm looking for.
Puzzled? Yeah,
very puzzled as to what the hell the thought process was, because we knew, you and I talked about it on this show already multiple times this year. We knew Ullmark was going in the offseason. I think the whole league knew it. It was just a matter of where. But unless they have plans for the return they just got, I'm just like, there's so much more you could have gotten for Linus Ullmark from anybody in the league for that matter. So I understand why Ottawa wanted him. Good move for Ottawa. But as far as what they have to offer Boston, I was just kind of like, I don't know. Right now, I feel like it was a mistake, but we'll see what the long-term plan is.
Yep. And for the Sens, again, they get their goalie. They thought it was going to be Korpisalo. I never liked that move from the beginning from them. I thought it was kind of a stretch after how last season went for him. I know they needed a body and they needed a guy that could play goal. I just didn't think it was going to be Korpisalo, but they get their guy now, Linus Ullmark, coming off of Vezina last season. And a really good year again with the Bruins this year. I know he kind of took a step back in his role as they wanted Jeremy Swayman to really take over the net and be the number one guy. But they offload 75% of Joonas Korpisalo's contract, and really they end up just paying that and a first round pick, and they get their guy in net. So the Sens are another team that'll be interested to see what they do at the draft, because not a horrible team on paper, but the season certainly blew up in their face because they couldn't get any fucking saves. So the Sens are going to be a dark horse for me when we set up next season to really do some damage. I'm really excited to see how their summer goes, because that's a team that really nobody's talking too much about other than with this trade. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see him do some damage with the real goalie.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how this plays out for them. Like I said, I got nothing but love and respect for Linus Ullmark. I'm gonna miss the goalie hugs in Boston. I think everybody's going to, but and Swayman's his bestie, so they're gonna miss each other. But I think
maybe they'll do one when they play each other. No kidding.
God, I think that would just be weird at that point. But I think this is good for him. This is really good for Ottawa. Now it's okay. We got ourselves a Vezina trophy winning goaltender. Let's build a fucking team around him. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. I mean, you got Matthew Tkachuk now that just won a Stanley Cup, and his brother's never even played in a playoff game yet. I mean, I don't like the Sens, but I definitely want to see Brady in the playoffs at some point. And a lot of people don't like the Tkachuk brothers. I'm not one of those people. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. This is another one we're gonna have to keep a close eye on throughout the summer.
Yep, I would have to agree with you on that. Hopefully we get some more exciting trades. And today is the start of the buyout window too. So I assume by the time we do our next show, we're gonna have a lot. I assume our next shows might even be longer than this one, but we'll see. We had about a free 25 minutes to half an hour because of the Stanley Cup segment, so that made it a little easy.
Yeah,
we got some extensions now too. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's fixing, like the next episode or two are probably gonna be one long and two crazy, because this week that is happening right now in the NHL is going to be very eventful with all the shit they have going on. So anyway.
Yep. All right, so some extensions to announce. This one isn't official yet because it can't be official until July 1st when he's eligible for an extension. But it sounds like, according to Frege, that on July 1st, the Canes will sign defenseman Jacob Slavin to an 8-year, $6.5 million per season extension. That is an outstanding deal. Eric Tolsky, in his early days as a GM, is going to sign an absolute sweetheart deal for Jacob Slavin. He's one of the better. He's probably top 15 defender in the league. Excellent player. He's Carolina's best defenseman for sure. And to get him at 6.5 per with his skill level, I know he's not a super young guy, so the term is kind of long, but at that dollar amount with a cap that's going to be going up by a lot more the next few seasons, I think that deal is going to age pretty well if Slavin's play continues to stay at the level it's at.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to have to let you keep going because I have a phone call coming in right now that I absolutely have to take.
That's fine. I just got a couple announcements to do, so go right ahead.
All right, cool.
All right. Sometimes life is more important than hockey. So let's see here. Okay, sorry. I had to just pull up my list. All right. So the next extension, Philip Hronek in Vancouver is signing 8 years, $7.25 million per. Really good extension for him. I personally am of the opinion that that's a little bit high, but I also kind of compared that to the Jacob Slavin deal, which is an unfair comparison given that they're quite a bit different in age and their roles on the teams are a little bit different. So for Hronek, though, I mean, basically $7 million a season, and he's going to be paired with Quinn Hughes on that top pairing for Vancouver. We know his shot's great. We know he can be effective on the power play. So I think this will benefit Vancouver in the long term. And for a team that had I don't want to say a breakout season, but probably had a better season than most people were expecting, to get a guy locked up after they dealt with all this BS with his contract all season, I think that's great. I think now the concern for Vancouver becomes, okay, what are we going to do with Lindholm? Does he stay? Does he not? It sounds like he's going to go somewhere else, but they didn't overpay on Hronek, so I'm excited to kind of see where they go this offseason because, again, they are going to want to add more center depth for this team. It's certainly needed, especially come playoff time where Vancouver did come up short this year. We'll get Andrew's reaction to that contract as well, but we'll move on next and talk about the Alex Nedeljkovic extension. Goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic extending in Pittsburgh 2 years, $2.5 million per year. This is good for the Penguins. They're kind of at the point where they're figuring out, okay, what are we going to do with Tristan Jarry? Do we move him? Do we not? Is he our guy? Is he not? It's good to bring in another body that you know is going to be able to start you if you need to 30 to 40 games. And again, the Penguins need to figure out what they're going to do with Tristan Jarry, but bringing in a guy that you know what you're getting, especially at a low dollar amount, is really going to go a long way for the Penguins. And Andrew, are you back now? I saw you put your phone down. All right, Andrew, your reaction, please, to the Philip Hronek extension in Vancouver. Oh, hang on. There we go. In Vancouver, 8 years, $7.25 million per.
It's a hell of a, first of all, it's a hell of a lot of money. But before I get into it, I just want to say the amount of money these players make, I don't even know what I would do if I got that amount of money just once in my life. He's getting that per year. I don't even know what I would do. Anyway, I think it's a great extension. I think Vancouver, they had it was a tough look against Edmonton in the playoffs. I would not be surprised to see them run it deeper next year, unless they end up against Edmonton again. But I wouldn't mind seeing an Edmonton-Vancouver conference final. And I really think that he's going to be a key part of that again. So, I'm sorry. Different phone call. I'm not answering that one, though. I also told nobody we were recording today, except for a few people. So usually I let everybody know to kind of leave me alone.
Just turn your phone face down.
Yeah, well, it still vibrates. I can still hear it.
Not me. I keep my shit on silent all the time. I don't know anybody talking to me.
But no, I think it's a really good extension. I didn't hear anything you said about it because I was on the phone, so I can't.
I just said I felt like the dollar amount was a little high given what Slavin got. But again, you're talking two players of different ages, different roles. Hronek's more known for his offensive prowess. He plays with Quinn Hughes, who does everything for Vancouver, so it makes it a little easier. But he's got a good shot for the power play, and so while I think it's a little money, as I talked about with Slavin, the cap's going to be going up. This contract could age very, very well for Vancouver too. So as much as I think it maybe was a little bit of an overpayment now, I think it's got a chance to age very well for them.
Okay. All right. Well, not really. No point in me adding more to that.
For the Penguins as well, I talked the extension for Alex Nedeljkovic. Again, a team that's trying to figure out what they're going to do with their net going forward. You get a couple more years of, certainty anyways. You still have Jari you still have Nedeljkovic. You got to figure out now, okay, what's the plan with Jari? Is he going to be a guy we want to keep long-term or what? But for the Penguins, again, a team that really underperformed this season, I have to imagine they're not done making moves yet, but they got to figure out what the hell to do, because this season was unacceptable given the roster they have.
Well, I think it's time to move on from Jari, and nothing against him, but I think it's just time to move on. They thought it was time to move on from Fleury, and they should have never done that. With that being said, I think Nedeljkovic is the future. When my wife and I were in Pittsburgh for a Penguins game on New Year's Eve, Nedeljkovic was actually the goalie, and I mean, he's a very acrobatic goaltender. I think he's very talented, and I think if they can build a good team around him, that's your starter right there, man. And again, nothing with Tristan Jari. He can go somewhere else too and still get paid and still play well. But I think as far as Pittsburgh goes, I think he's kind of run his course.
Fair enough. For the Winnipeg Jets, they extend defenseman Dylan DeMello 4 years, $4.9 million per year. They know they're losing Brendan Dillon to free agency. I think this is one where you just throw money at a guy so you can, again, keep warm bodies there, keep guys who you know what you're getting. I think that's what the Jets did here. This isn't a terrible deal, and it's not a long-term deal either, so I like it for them.
I like it. It's not really gonna affect your cap hit. So again, anytime you can get a deal done like that for, I mean, essentially low cost, I think that bodes well for you in the long run. So, and I mean, there's always a chance, if things keep going well, you can extend him further. You can pay him more if you need to. But I mean, like you said, he's not a superstar by any stretch. He's still a key part of the team, but he's just, for lack of a better term, average.
Yeah. So again, look, they're going to lose Brendan Dillon to free agency. I don't think Colin Miller will extend there either, unless he really wants to play in Winnipeg. But the Jets have Sean Monahan's a UFA, Tyler Toffoli's a UFA. I don't know. Maybe you try and extend Monahan so you have another center, but Cole Perfetti's an RFA, and they're probably going to he's due for a big raise. Pretty promising young player. So on July 1st, Nikolai Ehlers and Alex Iafallo will be eligible for extensions as well. I have to imagine that. Oh, 1 second here. My computer just freaked out. Okay, there we go. I have to imagine that Iafallo and Ehlers are going to be looking at extensions pretty close to July 1st. Ehlers making $6 million against the cap right now, and Iafallo making $4 million. Iafallo is 30 years old, though, so I don't know how much you want to offer a guy that's probably going to start getting into the back nine on his career. But Ehlers is a fantastic player. He's really fast. I think he's got a good shot. So they have some decisions to make here, but again, getting DeMello on the books for under $5 million per year, I think that's a good. I don't want to say depth signing because he's not a bad player or he's not an underperforming player, but again, when you look at Winnipeg, they're big guys: Neil Pionk, Nate Schmidt, Josh Morrissey. Those are the names you think of with the Jets defense. Dylan DeMello is not a guy that jumps off the page,
right? And I think with Iafallo, it's mostly, do you want to take the gamble of, is he going to start to, I'm not so sure deteriorate's the right word, but I guess, again, for lack of a better term, that's what I'm going to use. Is he going to stay consistent, or is he slowly going to start to decrease? It's what gamble do you want to take with him? Again, he's 30 years old. And like you said, entering the back nine of his career. So it's mostly, how confident are you in him? I think that's what it boils down to for him. Ehlers, like you said, no worries there. Just get it done.
Oh, I also missed Gabriel Velarde's eligible for an extension July 1st. He's going to be an RFA, so I assume he'll be sticking around, and he had a really good year for the Jets, so I'm assuming they're going to probably offer him some more money, but again, that's why they're going to lose a guy like Brendan Dillon. I don't know if they're going to qualify Logan Stanley, but again, for goalies, they're going to lose Laurent Brossoit because he's going to go make a shit ton of money somewhere else. But that's just the way it is. So we'll see how it goes for the Jets. But again, you lock up a defender. Nothing wrong with that. The Jets have how much cap space? Jets are looking at about $8.5 million in cap space right now. So we'll see where they go going forward. But that'll be another fascinating team to watch, because I think, especially for me, I picked them to go to the Cup final. I think they kind of vastly underperformed in the playoffs. I really think a lot of people had high expectations for the Jets, and they just did not deliver. So we'll see how they handle this offseason, and I'm kind of excited to see what they do.
I'm kind of excited to see if my internet's about to shit out right now.
Oh boy, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Let's move
Oh,
on.
we're
It's
good.
getting a little warm in my living room. The real feel outside is 99 today. So
That sucks.
yeah, it does, but that's all right. All right, the final one, the final extension, and this is probably the big fish here. Casey Middlestad locked up in Colorado for 3 more years. 3 years, $5.75 million per year. This is a fantastic deal for the Avalanche. I know it's not super long term, so if he ends up staying there long term, his next contract will probably be a big one. I'm going to pull up their cap friendly real quick too.
Well, we can still utilize cap friendly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, we can still use it. I think we got about 10 days left of it before it's gone. I think July 5th is the last day it's available.
Yes,
Let's see. So for the Avs, they're going to be right now. They have projected $10.4 million in cap space. With this deal signed, I assume they're not done yet. But again, they have quite a few free agents that they still need to address. The big one that jumps out at me is Sean Walker. He's 29 years old, but he's a UFA. Pretty good defender. I would assume they'll want to keep him around. I liked how he looked in Colorado once he got going. But again, the big extension again for Middlestad, he's your number 2 center. He's playing behind McKinnon, so the pressure's pretty low in comparison to the guys above him, but he's a really good player. He can be a good power play guy. I think he's a great fit in Colorado. And so we'll see how it goes for them going forward. But again, Colorado, they have quite a bit of cap space left, but they got to decide what they're going to do with Jonathan Drouin if they want to bring him back. Brandon Duhaime's a free agent. I think he's gone. Yoel Kiviranta gone more than likely. I would think he's a UFA. Yakov Trenin's a UFA, but maybe if you can bring him in on a cheap deal because he's still so young. Jack Johnson's a UFA. I have to imagine he's going to retire. He's 37. Yeah. Caleb Jones, UFA as well. He's 27. But again, for the Avalanche, the big question here is what the hell are they going to do in that? If I'm Chris McFarland, hang on a sec. Yeah, if I'm Chris McFarland, I am trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do in my net. We dogged on them all season long, since the inception of the show for not doing anything about their goaltending. While I don't want to say it cost them this playoffs because I don't necessarily think Georgiev was terrible, you got to get a better goalie. You got to get a better goalie. And they have a ton of cap space. And again, I know they still need to fill out some roster spots, but they have Justus Annunen. They can keep him as a really cheap backup option. This team is good enough in the regular season to outscore its problems with a backup goalie in net. You got to go out and find your guy. And Olmark's off the table now. Markstrom off the table now. Saros, it sounds like they're working towards an extension in Nashville. It doesn't sound like John Gibson's one of the guys, or it doesn't sound like Colorado's one of the teams that John Gibson will end up with. All these big fish goalies are gone now, and the Avalanche are really just kind of left hanging. So unless they can pull off some kind of blockbuster, I'm concerned about their ability to win another Stanley Cup with this group.
They sunk their own ship, and like you said, we dogged on them since the inception of this show, and they really dropped the ball at the trade deadline. I am shocked that they didn't even try and make somewhat of a run at Linus Ullmark. That team with Linus Ullmark in net is, in my opinion, fucking unreal. And as much as we bash Georgiev all season, he did not play anywhere near as bad in the playoffs as we made him out to be all season. But like I said, playoffs are a different animal. But moving forward, that you have the team that's the offensive juggernaut now, and you have a team that for the most part can come through for you defensively. You need to be focused on goaltending. I don't know how many times we're going to beat this dead horse with this same team. It's redundant at this point. We haven't talked about them in a while, which has been kind of nice, but you need to go out and get a goaltender. And like you said, now that you have all these big names off the table, where do you turn to? Because you dragged your feet for too long. I mean, you're kind of just stuck in limbo at this point.
Yeah. It's so fascinating looking at Colorado's roster, because you look at the forwards and defense and this is a really awesome team. I mean, They have their entire core is locked up. Rantanen is actually eligible for an extension July 1st, but coming into this season, they got their top 6 locked up, really. And their top 4 defensemen, Makar, Taves, Girard, and Manson, are all still under on the books for a couple more seasons at least, with Makar, Taves, and Gerard all being on the books for 3 or more years. They have everything in place here. And again, I know they can't get too crazy because in the event Gabriel Landeskog is able to come back from his injury, he's making $7 million against the cap. So I understand they are cautious on overspending on anything because if Landeskog comes back, they need that cap space. But you got to do something here. You got to find a goalie. This team is too good to not be winning. It's a really bad look that this team wasn't even in the conference final this year. And I know Dallas was really good, but on paper, they're probably better than Dallas. And if they can get a freaking goalie, they're a tier above Dallas even. It's unacceptable that this team isn't competing for Stanley Cups year after year. And so they need to address this. I know it's tough, and I know they have to worry about Landeskog's contract if he comes back, but that's part of this process also is figuring out what's happening with Gabriel Landeskog. Is he going to be able to play? I mean, I know he badly wants to, and I think everybody wants him to be able to, but you have to get some kind of answer here because you can't hold your whole team up over this either. I mean, they have to get a guy that's good enough to push them over the top. They won a Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper as their goalie. Clearly, they showed that it doesn't work every single time you try it with an okay goalie. You got to go out and get a good enough guy. Look at Tampa Bay, the same amazing team all those years, but they also had an elite goalie that they locked up. And it's not just easy to find an elite goalie, but the options have been there too. Linus Ullmark was there. And again, I know he had a no trade, so it wasn't completely under their control. But again, Linus Ullmark was there. Jacob Markstrom was there. Jake Allen was there. John Gibson's been there. Saros was there for a while. It sounds like Gustafsson may be available from the Wild, although I don't know that they would trade him to a divisional rival. But the point is that there are other goaltending options out there, and to just stick with Georgiev is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, it's almost annoying. Let me rephrase. It is annoying that we're still having this conversation. What is it? 5 months later. So I don't know. Where do you go from here? I don't fucking know. I have no idea.
All right. So we won't spend too much breath on that because who knows, maybe in the next couple of days, they'll solve that issue and this will all be for nothing.
Yeah. Maybe my hair will grow back.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe mine will too. All right, a couple retirements. Andrew Cogliano, the NHL's Iron Man, retiring after 1,294 NHL games, and he will join the Avs staff, I believe, as an assistant. So Cogliano, the big Iron Man, he again played 1,294 games. I believe like 1,100 of those were in a row. He didn't miss any games to injury. And he when he finally missed a game, it was because of a 1-game suspension, which is just the worst way to have your Iron Man streak in. But again, a guy who's a Stanley Cup champion, a really good player. He was very effective everywhere he was. He spent a long chunk of his career with the Anaheim Ducks. And so one of the great Iron Men in the league is retiring. I assume he'll slot in just fine with the Avalanche's coaching staff.
Yeah, I think he's perfect for that job. So I talked about this, I think it was a couple episodes ago. It's weird seeing guys that you grew up watching
retire.
Yeah, it's just it's a weird feeling. It's sad isn't quite the word for it. It's just maybe humbling, I guess. Realizing that like nothing's permanent. I don't know. It's just weird.
All right. Speaking of players that we grew up watching retiring, Derek Brassard retires in the NHL after playing 1,013 career NHL games. So another guy north of 1,000 games. Played with 10 different teams throughout his career. Spent some seasons with the Blue Jackets and spent some years with the New York Rangers, including a trip to the Stanley Cup final in 2014. Then played a couple years in Ottawa and Pittsburgh. Played some games with the Panthers, Avalanche, Islanders, Coyotes, Flyers, and Oilers before returning to the Senators for last season.
And he went on the NHL World Tour.
Yeah, he did. I didn't think anybody played with more teams than Yager, but Derek Brassard certainly danced around quite a bit. But congrats to him on a great long career. 1,000 games is definitely an impressive feat in a league where there's injuries aplenty and it's always so competitive and tough to make NHL rosters. To play 1,000 games is certainly something to be proud of. So congrats, Derek Brassard, on a great career. Hope you have a healthy and long retirement, and ditto as well for Andrew Cogliano.
Absolutely.
And pretty soon, once we get an official word on Kyle Okposo, I'm sure we'll be doing the same thing on him. But we already kind of gave him his flowers at the start of this anyways.
Yeah, he's going out on top anyway, so
yeah,
that's great.
that's a hell of a way to go out. Now, one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is kind of fascinating to me. There is going to be a preseason game played in Iowa. So the Wells Fargo Arena, not to be confused with the Wells Fargo Center in Philly, the Wells Fargo Arena, which is home of the AHL's Iowa Wild, is hosting a preseason game on September 22nd of this year between the St. Louis Blues and the Utah Hockey Club. Pretty fascinating stuff. Interesting choices of teams. I'm kind of cool that they're bringing in Utah for this, but pretty good sized barn in Des Moines. So that'll be a fun one to kind of watch. Nothing spectacular. Again, it'll be a preseason game, so it won't count for anything, but it'll be pretty fun. They're calling it the Des Moines Community Classic. So again, just kind of fun, much of the way that NBC used to do the Kraft Hockeyville, where they would renovate an arena every year, like a small community arena, and have two teams play a preseason game. Kind of something similar to this. You're just bringing in NHL teams to get more exposure to the game. So I always like to point those out when we get that, because this game needs to grow.
Absolutely. Where you and I are huge advocates for growing the game. So I think that's incredible. I think Iowa's a good place to do it, because that's probably the only thing there is to do in Iowa. So
yeah, I mean, truthfully, so that game will be on a Sunday as well. So, I mean, that'll be a good weekend game if people want to travel out there. I mean, I think it gives the locals a chance to check out an NHL game there. But if fans of either of those teams want to head out too, it's a week on the weekend. So even though the game's on a Sunday, but it gives you a chance to get out there and experience that. So that's pretty cool. Before we go, is there any more questions, or was there just the one for today?
That was just the one for today.
All right. Well, there we go. This went by. I actually thought this show would run a lot longer, but that's all right.
That's okay.
It's hot. I want to go lay in the AC anyways.
Yeah. I just want to go keep basking in all the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup champion stuff on social media right now, and go look at some merch too. Gotta get some of that queued up.
I was gonna say, next podcast you better have a Stanley Cup. I was kind of surprised you didn't have your Panthers jersey on when we recorded this, but
well, I didn't want to take it off the wall. It's a good backdrop piece, and I didn't have another jersey that I wanted to replace it. I guess I could have put a Monsters jersey up there, but
yeah, I'm just glad your giant head always blocks the Marchand jersey behind you.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to take you off the stage now.
No.
Oh, shit, I did the wrong way. If you're watching on video, I definitely just did that the wrong way. Oh, well. Right. Anyways, before we go, real quick, to make sure you're checking us out on all your media platforms. We have our website, freshicehockeypodcast.com. We're on Facebook at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. We're on Instagram. The handle is at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. I personally am on Instagram, too, at Brian Fresh Ice. And, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe, comment your questions below, or you can send them in to us as well, freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com, or click the link on the bottom of our website. You can get your question in that way too. So again, at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast on Instagram and at Brian Fresh Ice. Please give us your follows. We're going to try and be a little more active on media this summer as there's less and less hockey news to talk about. We'll try and be a little more interactive.
Absolutely. And like Brian said, you get your questions in. With the season officially being over now and how busy it's about to get, general hockey questions are welcome. That is another purpose of this show. We will answer any of them. No dumb questions, I promise. As the Kelsey brothers always say, there's no dumb questions, just dumb people. I hope that's not trademarked.
Yeah, I hope not.
Also,
the only dumb questions are the ones you don't ask.
Correct. One thing I do want to point out real quick before we go to, if you may have noticed up in the upper right corner of our video, and if you follow us on social media and whatnot, you'll see that we do have a new logo. I need to shout out Brad from Brad Sports Media. He actually works for TSN in Bar Down. He does incredible work, as you can see. He designed our logo for us. So this is our new main logo. He also gave us 3 different alternate logos as well that will be displayed at a later time. You can actually check out one of those on Brian's Instagram page. Just absolutely incredible work done in a timely manner. The guy does great work. Check him out on Instagram at Brad Sports Media. I believe he has a website too, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I will make sure to shout that out. on the next episode as we look forward to doing business with him in the future. So, Brad, thank you a million times for that. You really hit the ball out of the park.
Yep, absolutely. I love the way they turned out. All 4 pictures he gave us were really good. Our main logo, and as you mentioned, I set the one as my profile picture on Instagram. So, all right. Well, that's a wrap on this hockey season. I mean, we'll still be back. Well, the draft is this weekend, and free agency starts Monday. Given that free agency starts Monday, we'll probably be back next Tuesday, as we don't want to go 5 or more days between the start of free agency and our show. So I think it's safe to say we'll be back next Tuesday again instead of next Sunday. There'll just be so much news to cover in the coming days. I don't want to miss any of it.
I'm right there with you. So I think next Tuesday is a safe bet. So we will play it like that.
We may be back. I don't know. We'll see if we get a bug up our ass and want to do something after the draft or the award show. But for sure, we'll be back the Tuesday after free agency starts either way. So, Andrew, you did an excellent job starting this show. Before we go, I just want to say take care. And is it October yet?
Yeah, I wish, man. But we'll see what happens. Panthers are Stanley Cup champions. Enjoy it.